3,
2, 1, go! Alright, hey guys, I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jess.
And we are coaches here at Big Lit CrossFit. This is the next episode in our podcast that we are using to hopefully serve as a tool for you, build you up spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah.
So today's topic.
Competing.
Yes. Competing, what is competing, why we should compete,
Mm-hmm.
why we encourage competing, how it actually is healthy.
Yeah.
And sometimes unhealthy, but
Yeah.
mostly healthy.
Yeah.
But we want it to be healthy.
We want it to be healthy.
Yes.
I think it can be a really good thing, especially with the Open coming up.
Absolutely.
So.
But before we get into that, my new favorite thing, high-low buffalo.
Buffalo. This is good. All right, am I going first?
Yeah, go first.
Okay. Let's do highs first. We'll just go in the right order.
Okay.
So I kind of have two little quick highs. One, Travis had a procedure that was successful, and it seems to be very positive results for his heart. So hopefully we're going up with health for that. Second, this happened, I think, last week. I was coming in. If you know me, I'm usually late with my kids. I promise you, I tried so hard not to be late. This is a high still. But I'm rolling in, get an arm stroller, and Julie, who's one of our MLC Cougar people, walks up to me, goes out of her way because I come in the side door, and just gives me the greatest compliment. She's like, I just want you to know you're so inspiring. I'm like, that is so nice because I am very frazzled and carrying all my kids in. And she helps me escort my children in the door and comes in, and it just has very kind words.
You never know who's watching.
I know, yeah, that is true. So thanks, Julie. That meant a lot. Lows. I told Natalie all I could think about were lows for this.
I love when you laugh over it. You're like, low.
Well, they're funny after, not in the middle. That's for sure. So, going to the grocery store with my children is very hard.
It's just a low anytime.
It's not always a low. But gosh, it was just one of those things where it had built up to this moment, and it was dark out and I think kind of rainy, and I'm trying to push a grocery cart with all three of my kids and keep them safe in a parking lot. And Hannah is not paying attention, and I try to get her attention, and she does not. So I have to bring out mom, loud, ugly voice and rail her because there's a car backing up that doesn't necessarily see us. So I'm trying to get her to stop because I got the other two secure, and so I had to rail on her because I do not play around in dangerous situations.
That's fair.
Yeah, I was not nice sounding in any way, and I felt bad because I finally get them in the car. They're all upset with me because they lost their electronics privileges and all that good stuff for behavior.
Aww.
Yeah. So I finally get them all in the car and shut the door, and I look over, and the guy who was going to back up is still there. And he's got his window down. And he's like, sorry. I'm like, oh no. He just witnessed all of that. And he felt bad enough that he apologized, and I felt horrible.
Oh, goodness.
Because he was back. He didn't see us at first, but he wasn't going fast. I would have had the kids in time, but I wanted them to remember that that's not okay. So, if you're that guy in Food Line and you're listening to this podcast, I'm sorry. Sorry you had to witness that.
Oh, no.
But
It happens to the best of us.
yeah.
All right, high-low, what's your buffalo?
Buffalo, kind of along the same lines. If you've ever been in a bathroom with three tiny people, it is I've talked to some of the other moms about this to see if it's happens to other people. It's the worst experience to be in a stall with three other people going nuts, tiny people. I'm talking about my children.
No, just three random tiny people.
So we go to Chipotle, and we don't eat in restaurants that often for obvious reasons, and I take them all in there to use the bathroom, and it's an automatic light that turns on and off. Unfortunately, it has a switch that's right at Debbie's Sue level. So she spends the whole time turning the light off, and I'm trying to turn it back on. Hannah's trying to, got her pants down, trying to put, toilet paper on the toilet seat so she can not touch the gross potty. And it's just light comes back on, something else is happening. I don't know what Abby Jo is doing. There's this time, I think she's spinning in circles or something.
Just every time the light comes on, it's a new scene
It
of
really
chaos.
is. And I was I'm losing my mind. I'm pretty sure everybody in the restaurant can hear us. The sink is
Dinner
running
and a
nonstop. So eventually, we made it out.
Oh,
Everyone was,
it's eventful.
yeah, for a bathroom trip. So that's my buffalo. So
I love that.
your turn.
All right, high, low, buffalo. High of the week, soccer is picking back up. So I'm back out working with all the different teams that I work with, but it's out on the field, sometimes in the gym, but back touching a soccer ball. So that's always a high for me.
It's fun.
My low, if anyone did not notice that we didn't post a video last week, is because I had the plague.
Yeah.
And I haven't been that sick in many years.
Yeah.
It was so bad. I'm still recovering, still having a hard time working out. So anyone else who is sick, I feel you. I feel the pain. And then my buffalo, this was just a really funny moment for me. So I'm working with, volunteering, working with my old high school team, which I was homeschooled. It's a little bit of like a younger team, smaller team. But part of what we're doing right now is just conditioning. And so I'm doing a lot of interval training with them and stuff like that. But we do this session the other day, and some of these girls have never really worked out before at all, ever. And we're doing these interval trainings, and then we end with abs every single day. We do core work. And this girl just is sprawled out on the floor. And I was like, all right, you guys are done. Good job. And you just hear this, thank you. Like, they're so polite. They thank me every single time. And it was like, there was no energy left in her.
What a great group of girls to say thank you.
It was so sweet. But I was also like, that was hilarious. Because it was every effort of her body just dead on the ground.
That has to be satisfying. She's giving you everything.
It was, yeah. Very hard workers. Very hard workers.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Don't kill your little children.
Yeah. I love them. They're a blessing.
Oh.
All right. So now on to our actual subject. Like we said, it's going to be competing. Before we go into our why, can we talk about what competing looks like in the CrossFit world? Or when we talk about competing, what exactly are we referring to?
Yeah, it could be a number of different things. Like the big thing I think of first is the Open, just because we're a couple weeks away from that.
And can you just go into what the Open is, just in case?
Yeah, so the Open is, so the CrossFit every year, I think this is, what are they doing, like 15 years or something like this? Yeah. So anybody in the world can sign up. You pay your $20 and you compete in a way. You do one workout a week. Now it's 3 weeks. It's been as many as 5 weeks in the past, but you just do one workout. You submit your scores online, and then you can compare your score to people around the world, people the same age. And then for the very top percentage, those people move on to the next level to go towards the CrossFit Games. But for the rest of us, it's more of like a benchmark and a way to push yourself. I think we're going to dig into a little bit of why the CrossFit Open can be really cool. But it's something they've been doing a long time, and it's just, you do one workout a week and submit your score. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, and it's, just to clarify, it is the same workout, and they have different options to scale. But if you're doing a scale, like, you're all doing the same scale.
Right. So
you can compare yourself, like we said, to people around the entire world, or compare yourself from year to year, just looking at your own progress.
Absolutely. And they even have foundations now. So you can, if you're a beginner, you can still do the Open. And it's totally relevant.
And it's released the night before, so you can't really prepare for it. And you have only a couple of days to get it in.
Yeah. So in that sense, it feels like being at a competition.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
So yeah.
Okay, so the Open is one. What are some other?
We are doing Vista Big Leg here this weekend. So that's one that we do every year, which is an in-house competition. You could do local competitions in the area, or you can travel wherever. You can compete within your class or with yourself from day to day, or when we do benchmarks, repeatable workouts, that's kind of a form of competing too. So it doesn't have to look like going to the CrossFit Games, you know.
Yeah. I would say for most of us, it's not looking like that. Yes. Okay, so just wanted to clarify that, what exactly we're talking about when we say we're competing. So some of them are very formal competitions, even if it's local. And then other times it's less formal, just tracking your own score, but it's still competing, whether it's against yourself or someone else.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, so relevant for everybody.
Yeah. All right, so that being established, purpose. Why? What are some reasons that, I know I have some reasons, but what are some reasons that you think it's important to compete, or that you enjoy competing yourself? Yeah,
I think there's a lot of benefits, and I think I just thought before we get into that, it's interesting to think about, like, there is a benefit to it. You're like, well, if I'm not going to qualify for the CrossFit Games, or if I'm not going to reach the top level, why compete? And we had talked about, like, well, you would still sign up for a race or run a marathon or whatever, even if you're not going to qualify for the Olympics. So I think there's benefit to it. So we're going to walk through that.
I think that's such a good point. And CrossFit is one of the few times that I hear that where people are like, I'm not going to the games, so why not
What's
compete?
the point? Yeah.
But I've coached soccer for years, and never once has someone come up and been like, well, I'm not going to the World Cup, so not going to play here.
Yeah.
Like, there's still purpose in competing.
Yeah, there's a ton of good benefits. So I think we're going to walk through that step by step. You had on there like the goal setting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like where you are now versus where you could be. Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, when we talked about in our episode on goal setting, one of the very first things you have to do is assess where you are. Mm-hmm. And there's no better way to assess where you are than to go all out in like a competition setting to see really how far along you are.
Yeah.
When we're by ourselves in a comfortable place, a lot of times we don't push necessarily that limit.
Yep.
And so this is a great way to like truly assess where you are at this moment so that you can set better goals along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can increase your motivation too. We kind of talked about that with goal setting. Just setting goals increases your motivation. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a different environment where the intensity level is a little bit higher, I think you can reach some zones that you kind of be able to get to on your own day to day.
Absolutely.
So I like stuff like the open because I think it carries over into the rest of the year. It's not just like a 3-week period and then you're done with that level. All right, accountability. So I like the example of like you wouldn't. So if you got like a 5K race, drumstick dash or whatever, you wouldn't just like go run next to them and not pay, right? That would be weird. But if you're like, oh hey guys, gonna run the other side of this room. But when you pay for something, it becomes more of like a commitment,
Right.
Like I hate having to pay extra for things like the open. But when you do pay for it, you're like, okay, I'm committed. I'm going to do my very best. So I think as far as that accountability, it kind of raises the bar a little bit. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's absolutely true. And it's accountability to those around you who are also competing.
Yeah.
Like, speaking of drumstick dash, which is our 5K that we run on Thanksgiving here in our area, even just knowing that you were running it also made me want to run just a little bit harder.
Somewhere out there.
Not like a bad way, like I was never going to beat you, but like not like that was the purpose, but it was just having that accountability of like, I knew you were there.
Yeah.
And so I think that accountability plays in as well.
Yeah, I think there's several different layers of accountability because in the open, you're working out next to people. You've got somebody judging you.
Yeah.
Like, I know they're seeing me struggle, but I'm going to do my best.
No cheating reps today.
Yeah, that's true too. Like accountability as far as quality of movement.
Yes.
That's another form of accountability. But if you're doing there's a lot of team competitions, like we did a partner one. That's a
whole other level of accountability.
So you really, and your training increases as you're preparing for it. Mm-hmm. It just, again, increases your motivation because you're accountable to somebody besides yourself.
Yeah. And remember, accountability was also one of our elements to goal setting that we talked about.
So this all ties in.
Yeah.
Love it. We did numbers. All right. Overcoming fears, right?
I think this is such a big one because we can come up with as many excuses as we want for why we don't compete. But at the core of it, I think most people, not all, but most people, it's because you're afraid.
Yeah.
Like you feel very vulnerable and exposed when you're competing in front of someone.
Yeah.
Especially like when we talk about in the open and you have a judge there with a sheet who is marking your quality of movement and also like counting your reps for you. And that can be a scary thing. Like call it as it is. It is scary.
It is. Yeah. When we had first met, she had mentioned that she had never done a competition. I was surprised because she's very athletic and good at CrossFit, and she was
very scared.
Yeah, she was like, it's just one of those things that it's just like she, it was a fear. I was like, well, we're gonna get you to do one. So
once just decide something.
But you overcame that fear, and it was super cool, right?
It was. It was one of the best things I've done in CrossFit. I know I'd say probably is the best thing I've done in CrossFit. Was actually getting out and competing.
Yes, I think it was super fun, and there's something to it when you are able to overcome that. It's like part of what we're meant to do is kind of overcome and stretch ourselves a little bit and get outside of those comfort zones.
Oh, so. For sure. And we've been talking about this for a little bit about overcoming fear, but on the psychological side of things, there's also an element to the intensity at which you move, which we know is a huge aspect of CrossFit. We talk about, it's not just moving load, but how quickly you move load. Yeah. And that's a huge element in our fitness and how we gauge fitness. Mm-hmm. And when you have consequences on the line, your intensity is naturally going to go up a little bit. And so using that fear to also increase your fitness is not a bad thing. And that's actually, like, sometimes having a little bit of fear and anxiety is a good thing, which I think we're going to do an episode on that entirely.
Yeah, competition anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, I like that. I think what was the name of that lady you talked about?
Amy Butcher.
Yeah, I think she's worth mentioning.
Yes, she talks a lot about the benefit of fear and how we shouldn't look at fear as a bad thing, but a way to build and grow. She has this statement that she uses where it's fear inspires exceptional outcomes.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it's true. We look at fear as a bad thing, and it's a natural response for our body when we see something or feel something that we should be afraid of to back away. Yeah. Our nervous system kind of kicks in.
Yeah.
But being intellectual beings, there are times where we need to overcome that nervous system response.
Yeah.
And grow from that experience, overcome that experience.
Yeah. I think it's okay to be afraid, and sometimes you just do stuff afraid. Mm-hmm. And God calls us to be brave. He doesn't say don't be afraid, but to be courageous anyways.
Yes.
And so I think there's some good stuff in that. I think too, when you overcome things and you choose to do brave things, you're setting an example for people around you, because you don't have to like pretend that's not causing you anxiety or fear. But when you choose to do it anyways, people are like, oh, like she was afraid to do this competition, but she did it anyways. Like maybe that's something I can do too. And so I don't know. I think it's a good example for other people.
Yeah, and another good example, because I think sometimes, I know I did, we think people who are experienced don't have that fear anymore.
Yeah.
And when we did this competition this last fall, my first competition, that was, I don't know how many you've done, but you've done quite a few. You're somewhat experienced.
Yeah, it had been a while. It had been like 7 years since I've
done. But you still have the experience. And I remember getting ready for one of the events, and you were talking about being nervous, and I was like, why are you nervous? Like, this should be same ground for you.
Yeah.
Like, you know what's going on. But it's still, you're putting yourself in an uncomfortable, vulnerable situation, and you're still overcoming that fear every single time.
Yeah, I think I told you, like, it meant something to me.
Yes.
Like, it, if something means something, then it's going to produce some nerves in me, just because I want to do a good job and be accountable to my partner and, represent God well. So, but yeah, I think it's okay to be nervous.
It's good to be nervous.
Yeah. Like that. And then one, maybe final other point, or maybe two, that I had was there's a lot of community aspects to this, especially in the open and even in local competitions too. We built a lot of relationships talking to people. Mm-hmm. I love talking to people in the bathroom lines.
Yeah.
Because you go to the bathroom so much. You might as well talk to people.
Yeah.
But you meet people there, and when you like suffer together with people, I think it just builds a bond that you don't have elsewhere, which is why CrossFit is cool. And so I think that also happens in the open, and everybody wants everyone to succeed in here.
Yes.
It's really cool to see and watch as an athlete and coach. So
I think that's a different aspect to, I don't want to say entirely, but a lot in the CrossFit community compared to other athletic competitions is I've never been in a place like that where people celebrate other people beating them.
Yeah.
Like if I am losing to someone and I'm still celebrating you, that's such a cool dynamic to be a part of. Mm-hmm. And I think we see that a lot in CrossFit in general, and then I know especially like in this gym.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of celebratory nature in here.
Yeah, I think that's special. Like you said, it's not necessarily natural everywhere, even in CrossFit places, but there's a culture growing here, I think, and I think if we're intentional and continuing to invest in that culture, that we can have a healthy, competitive atmosphere.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I like that. And then just a quick little plug on the multiplying your talents. If you didn't see that episode, this is another way to multiply your talents.
Yeah.
God gives you these talents, and when you stretch yourself to do something that is uncomfortable and a little bit of anxiety producing, then it's good. Like you're multiplying the talents God gave you.
Absolutely.
All right. So, with that being said, I kind of wanted to get into like some personal stories of like for coaching and as being an athlete, whether it's the open or doing competitions or whatever it is, so you can kind of see how we've experienced this and maybe connect with that in some way. So I don't know. You want to do that?
Yeah. Start us off. Let's
go. All right. So we always talk about going to the deep end. This is going to be real deep. Fun fact: I struggle with being vulnerable. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today, but I just feel like through competitions and especially the open, God has showed up in so many ways in my life. It's cool. Doing that competition for the first time since having kids this fall was just an incredible blessing, and I think God orchestrated a lot of things to lead to that. Like if some hard things hadn't happened in my life, then I would not have been in that position. So it was cool to see that happen. And then as far as the open goes, I just feel just a calling to kind of get people to do that, because I think there's a lot of special stuff in it. It's not because CrossFit HQ sent me or something. They're giving me no money. I'm not like promoting them. It's just because I've seen what it can do for people as a coach. I've seen people get PRs and new things, and it's so exciting to do as a coach. But for me personally, this will be my 11th CrossFit Open. I've done 4 of them pregnant, which has been, and usually it's early on in my pregnancy, so like Shelly and Tracy maybe would know, and that was it. So though, it's been a lot of like, it hasn't all been like really high, ups. There's been some downs too, but there's purpose in that too. And I think it's helped me develop some character. But the biggest thing is I look back at these things at competitions and the Open, and I see them as like remembrance stones. I don't know if you remember the story of like Joshua in the Bible. I think it's like Joshua 4, where they cross the Jordan River and God has them bring out like 12 stones, one for each tribe. And then he's supposed to like build this monument so they remember. And then when they see it, they're supposed to talk about it with their kids and then their grandkids, and like, this is what God did for us. I see that a lot for me in the Open, especially last year's Open. Natalie knows the story and has heard it, but I started the Open pregnant, and my goal is to glorify God, and I still want to do that, now. But then I ended up having a miscarriage in the middle of it, and that was super hard. But somehow God, even at like my lower physical state and emotional state at that point, he allowed me to qualify for quarterfinals, which should not have happened in any form or fashion on my own. And I just see that as like a remembrance stone. So every time I look back at that, I have a silly little t-shirt that goes with it, but I see that t-shirt as a stone. God has been faithful to me, and he's helped me through so many things. He's created new friendships through this, and it just, to me, the Open is a little more special than just like doing 3 workouts. It's another way for me to depend on God. And we talked about this before we started recording. Like it's good for me to put myself in situations where I need God to show up. And so the Open has been that a lot. Competitions have been that a lot. So for me, personally, there's a lot of just like remembrance of God's faithfulness, and I just think that is so cool, and it just inspires me to do more. So anyways, that's my personal story. I don't know, your turn.
That's a lot to follow up. I still remember that. I had just started coming to this gym, and I remember working out. We were working out at the same time.
Yeah.
And you blew the doors off that workout. And if I didn't know, I never would have known.
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, that's such a testament to God's grace, because that's not something you, under those circumstances,
I should not have been able to do any of that. Yeah, I was like 2 days out of surgery, and it was all God.
The way you were moving, you never would have known.
So it's all, it's like you said, it's grace.
Yes.
It's all grace, so I'm thankful for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my Open story, I have, like you said, like there's a lot that I could talk about, but a few years ago, I was at a gym. I was there, but the owner of the gym had cancer at the time. I told you about her, Courtney. She was one of the most impactful people on my life as like a female leader. And she had just finished a round of chemo. She was so sick. She was like a couple weeks out, I think. I just remember she had finished the round. And she came in and she was like, I'm just going to do this. Same thing like you, like it's for God's glory. He still let me be here on this earth. And so she just went and did it and beat every girl in the gym. Like just watching her work out, and but her mindset was not about herself. There was no gloominess about it. And it was so much she wanted to be a part of the community, and she wanted to be show a testament to what God had done for her at that point.
Yeah.
And we all got to sit there and witness her do this workout and post her workout. And I think that was her last Open that she was able to do. She's no longer with us. But being able to see that and like the community that came around, and how inspiring it was to other people to see her stay strong in that time. I still remember that so clearly.
I think that's just so incredible. I've heard lots of stories about her friend Courtney, and she's had an impact on me, and I've never even met her. Yeah. And I think when you use that stage, that platform for God's glory, incredible things happen.
Yes.
And I love that. It's just so much more than just doing a workout.
Yeah.
So I think it's such a cool story.
Yeah.
All right.
Flipping the script a little bit.
Yes.
Do you have any fun, like funny or fun?
Fun and funny. Oh, competition stuff?
Competition or
Yeah. Or the
oh wait, I know your fun competition stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and tell that one.
Yeah. So if you don't know, my Wadhopper name is like Reverend Nose to Bar because I managed to just smash my nose open in front of a lot of people in a competition. I was teamed up with this guy. We had a coach, Ben Masters, that wanted to be my partner, and he's an awesome Olympic lifter. So the accountability thing was there, and I was nervous to not let him down. And there was chest to bar, and I somehow didn't notice that there was like one of the, I think called 30 South bars or something that stick out, like a triangle. Yeah. And I went up. Our heat is starting in like 10 seconds. Like I'm out on the floor, and I'll go to do a chest to bar rep. You like pull really hard for chest to bar, and I didn't see it, and so I pulled really hard and pulled essentially as hard as I could my nose into that bar to the point where music was playing. You could hear the crack, and then the crowd go, "Oh, no!" Yeah, it was bad. My mom was there. I think it made her sick to her stomach. Sorry, Mom.
Oh man!
So they had to stop the heat before it started, or had to step off. I think my poor coach Kurt and his partner had to step on in our place. So I'm sure they weren't ready to go. Sorry about that. And we had a PA friend at the time, and he ran down to his office and got a glue stick and glued my nose back together. And I finished the competition, and I'm sure it wasn't like the greatest finish, but
yeah, you went back. That's
the story behind Reverend Nose Bar.
Oh, I love that.
So
okay,
probably that won't happen to you. So if you're scared to compete.
Highlight.
Yes.
Highlight. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we could squeeze that story in.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting close on time, so let's go ahead and move on to programming. Unless you have any last.
Oh yeah, the last thing we'll mention. You put on there to remember your why.
Yes.
Like that's going to be your foundation for everything, right? Hopefully you've gotten something written down or you've thought about it at least. Remember your why. That's going to change your heart about the whole competition. It's going to change how you treat judges. It's going to change how you represent your teammates and your gym and everything else. If your heart is right, what you offer is going to be pleasing to God.
Yes.
Okay? So remember your why.
Yeah. And again, that's another episode that we've talked about where it's important to know your why. And when I was talking to Jess about this, I was like, it just kept coming to me, the man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart.
Yeah.
We got to remember that sometimes it's a hit to the pride. It can be embarrassing if you don't get the score that you want.
Mm-hmm.
But how man is looking at you and how you finish in a competition, that comes so secondary and doesn't even matter to what your heart is like and that why you're doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're still going to have an impact on other people, whether you come in first or 10th or 500th or whatever it is, based on your attitude and how you treat other people.
Yes.
So, yeah, want to mention that real quick. Yeah,
love that. All right, going to programming. What are we looking at for next week?
All right, so we are week 3 of this. I think it's a 4-week cycle. It's looked a little bit like there's a little bit of carryover from the bridge cycle, I feel like, because you have a little bit of cardio built in with some heavier percentages, which is good to get a little bit of fatigue before you lift heavy. It'll help prepare you for these competitions, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know, what do you think about the little bit of cardio mixed in?
This is my favorite format for CrossFit, when you go really heavy, and then personally I'd like the cardio to be a little shorter afterward. But no, I like the really heavy in the beginning and then a short cardio burst in the end.
Yes.
And so I've been a big fan of it.
Yeah.
I like it. I have, been dying from the plague, so I haven't been able to participate as much as I like, but
hopefully this is your week.
Yeah. Coming back strong.
Coming back. And there's been a little bit of aesthetic stuff, like the bodybuilding type stuff. I think that's just good for your shoulders and your joints.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about the percentages a little bit? This is what I wanted to bring up, because there's some big jumps on some of these.
Yeah.
And just talk about, do you feel like we need to stick strictly to percentages when we're doing this programming, or is it important that we just end at that percentage?
I think, as long as you're hitting the intended stimulus. So we talked about scaling and stimulus last week. So as long as you're getting to that percentages that is for that week, and building on that, I think that's okay to adjust your jumps a little bit. Us as coaches, we kind of tweak it as we go too. So like last week, we found that one of the jumps was just a little bit too big. So we tweaked it for the rest of the day, just so it feels a little bit better when you do get to that heavy percentage. So you can tweak the percentages just a little bit. So as long as your last set, that his goal, like if his goal is to get you to 95%, that you're around 95%.
Okay.
And a lot of times when he says 95, he does mean 95 and not 100%. So you're not going for a max necessarily.
Yeah.
So save that for when we do have max days.
Yep. One last follow-up question for you on that.
Yeah.
Let's just say I'm coming in and my 95%, like I'm failing it. I can't get there. How would you adjust the percentages in that area? Or if I just know I'm not going to be able to hit that number today?
Yeah,
like,
if you've been sick.
Yeah. Asking for a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, some days you're just going to be worn out, right?
Yeah.
So you might, if you're doing Vista Big Leg this weekend and you come in next week and you're beat down, drop the percentages down a little bit. Go heavy for that day. I think that's okay.
But have a plan before you come
maybe
in.
it's like 5% less or something.
Okay. Yeah.
And just work up to that.
I'm a big fan of saying you should have a plan. Like, some days you need to kind of feel how your body is, but when you walk up, because I know for myself, if I don't have a plan, I'm like, I'm just gonna go how it feels. Your pride kicks in. You're like, I'm just gonna keep going. So, if you're feeling rough, or you just know that number's not gonna be there, adjust the percentages, but stick to the percentages that you adjust to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. And if you're just like, don't get frustrated either if you're not hitting your 95 that day. Like it's, everybody's experience is different and you've done different things than everybody else. So it also hit the recovery day.
Yes, I'm loving this recovery day. I think that's a great new addition. That being said, if anyone wants to give us feedback on the recovery day, we'd love to hear it. Yeah. Mainly if it's positive, but we'll take the negative too.
Just don't be hateful.
Yeah, just don't be mean.
Don't be mean.
But no, we love hearing feedback. We'd love to hear feedback on what you guys think of that now that we're just a couple weeks in. So let us know.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Let's get ready for the Open.
Yes, our next couple episodes will be covering the Open. We're going to go over competition anxiety, go over some tips and some strategies, and getting your mind right for competition day.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. So hopefully we can get some people
maybe even some guest speakers coming on.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
All right.
Good.
Wrap on.